Where are we now, Phil? We've shifted on.
Yes, we've left AVETON Gifford, the village, and we've come down to Hutton Bridge over the Avon. Not far away, there's AVETON Gifford over there on the right. The north side. We are on the south side of Hutton Bridge now. Now, the significance of this bridge at the time of the Civil War was it was the main road between Dartmouth and Plymouth. And all the villages in between. And the only way across, as it is today. Yeah, you can hear the traffic. At the time of the Civil War, at the end of the Civil War, when it was all going wrong for the King, the Parliamentary Army under Sir Thomas Fairfax was in Dartmouth, not far away in that direction, south. It was also sending a force over to Fort Charles.
South side.
Yeah, further around.
Right.
So the Parliamentarian Army under Fairfax, the new model army, had beaten the King at Naseby the year before and had come in invaded the southwest and was in Devon. Exeter still held out for the King, but Thomas Fairfax didn't want to waste time besieging the town of the city of Exeter. So he moved on. He wanted the Royalist army that was retreating before him into Cornwall. He came down to this area, forced Dartmouth to surrender on January the 20th, 1646, and brought his army this way. Part of it he left at Fort Charles. Now the Royalists, not the Royalist army, it was just the local people with a few leaders. William Lane, the vicar of AVETON Gifford, was there, threw up an earthwork somewhere on the north bank.
Up on that hill there?
Somewhere over there, yeah. But it's too far away to be effective, really, in defending the bridge. So when the Fairfax's men came this way, they abandoned their earthwork. There was no fighting here. William Lane went into hiding, everybody else dispersed, and the parliamentarians came across. There was a rumour that there was a statue on this bridge. I've read a story that there was a statue on this bridge that was destroyed by the parliamentarians when they marched across this bridge. That could have been true. It could have been true as well that when the army in 1643 that attacked Modbury assembled in Kingsbridge and marched this way, could have smashed the statue then. They said it was thrown in the river.
It could still be there today.
It could be still in that river,
There's
Steve.
a lot of mud there.
There's a lot of mud there. Yeah, it could still be there, but someone would have picked it out.
They might have
Yeah,
done.
but it's a story that came out from the Civil War. A lot of stories came out from the Civil War. I wish it was true. I'd love someone to find out if it was true and let me know. But that was, William Lane went into hiding for a few months, some say in the tower of his church, before getting away from England. That's what happened here, Steve.
And today it's a very
busy road. It is.
That's
very
what
busy and noisy, yeah.
Thank you very much, Phil.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. What happened to William Lane after the war?
Well, Steve, we're still at AVETON Gifford, not far from the bridge or the village. At the end of the war, when the King was defeated, a lot of Royalists went into hiding. The clergy were persecuted. The Royalist clergy were persecuted by Parliament. A lot of them were thrown into prison. They'd lost their devotions. They were removed. So Parliament put their own people in, more to their way of religion rather than the Royalist way, the Laudian style. William Lane, towards the end of the war, he had to hide out because they were looking for him. When he had a chance, he fled to France. Now, in the meantime, his sons were released from Plymouth. The war's over. So Richard, his eldest son, went to New England. He took a ship for New England, different world, different lifestyle. His father went to France. He came back when everything settled down. Although the Parliament was still in control, he came back to AVETON Gifford. He'd lost his church, his position in the church, but he lived on the land in a couple of mills that he owned with his wife and the remaining children. Unable to make ends meet there, he moved to Torbay with his daughter and worked in a limestone quarry, selling limestone to boats that came in from Topsham. Now, one day, some Royalist pirates, don't forget the Royalists, a lot of Royalists who fled England were still active in the air. Prince Rupert was one. Him and his brother got hold of a couple of ships and were plundering in the Channel. Some of these Royalists came to where William Lane lived, plundered his house. He wasn't there. They didn't know who he was. They just took what they could, his tools and everything, and left. William Lane came back then with his source of living gone. He came back to Atherton Gifford. He's now in his 50s. He settled in again with his wife and remaining children there. And then the new vicar, Francis Barnard of Atherton Gifford Church, St Andrews, and William Lane did not get on. They clashed. So William Lane petitioned Parliament to have him removed and himself replaced as vicar. Now, rather than send this petition to Parliament, he took it himself. He rode, some say he went on foot, but that's a long way to go for a man in his 50s. He took a horse, rode to Parliament, presented his petition, and surprisingly, Parliament came out on William Lane's side. And so he came back with his answer, you know, all please his punch. Got as far as Honiton, between Honiton and Exeter, and was taken ill. Some said he drank bad waters. That's what it says in the books. He drank bad waters when taken ill. And he stayed at the King's Head to try and recover, but sadly he died. William Lane was buried in Alphington Church on August the 31st, 1654, under the chancel table there, and that's where he is to this day.
What fascinates myself, Phil, is that we get the names of like Aveton Gifford, Honiton,
Ringmore, Exeter.
Ringmore. They're such well-known places even today.
For us, yes.
And they were significant back then, weren't they?
Yeah, every little place has got a bit of history to it, especially in the Civil War.
And even today, if you drive to London along the old road, you could go through Honiton.
You can go through Honiton, yeah. Because it went through all these towns like Atherton Gifford here. Yeah.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is.
The other thing is that I think a lot of people think that people back in the day didn't travel far, but a lot of them did shift around, didn't they?
They did. Like going to London in his 50s. Well, his 60s, he was 54. He was in his 60s actually. It was 63 when he went to London. A man who'd got, it would have been he would have had a lot of problems. His age, don't forget, he'd gone through the war, on the run. He'd lost his family. He'd had to move to Torbay, working in a lime quarry. For a man in his 60s to go to London in the heat, because it was summer, and to come back and then to die just short of his destination.
Why do you think he may have died then?
Old age. I think it was just the exertions of the Civil War, the heat. They said he drank bad waters. That's what it was reported by. His youngest son wrote this, William. His youngest son passed this story on, and it's in Walker's Suffrage of the Clergy, his story. But not all of it. Like I said about the Plymouth bit with his brothers being there, that wasn't in there. The dates weren't in there. I found that out from other information. But John Sims had William Lane had quite a hard life. Like people did in those days. They worked hard, 6 days a week.
And of course, the other issue we have here today is that once again, Plymouth figures in everything.
Oh, Plymouth does.
And yet, in our history, in Plymouth, we don't see any of it at all.
No, a lot of it's gone.
Lost.
Yeah, we don't talk about it much.
We don't talk about it.
But Plymouth was the only place for Parliament holding out. This is why the people in the country here thought they could come out into the open and lambast Plymouth. He was called actually by the Devonshire parliamentarians. William Lane was known as the derisive Bishop Lane, even though he wasn't a bishop. The derisive Bishop Lane.
That's rude.
Well, he was despised by a lot of the parliamentarians in the area. So don't forget, it was all taken over by the Royalists as well. So the Royalists were doing their own raids, but they couldn't take Plymouth.
The thing then, back in the day, Aveton Gifford would be a lot quieter than it is today.
No, busier.
Or from hearing, yes. No, that's an interesting point, isn't it,
Yeah.
Phil? Back in the day, there would be more things happening here.
More activity.
More activity.
Yeah.
But it would be peaceful in the sense that you wouldn't hear the cars
No,
going by.
no. You'd hear horses and sheep and cows and pigs and
the
people.
And the song of these birds would be just the same, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
It would have been
link to the
quiet then,
past,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah,
Phil, thank you very much.
You're welcome, Steve. Thank you. Right, Steve, we've come back to Atherton Gifford, to the church, to look at this list of rectors of this St Andrews. There's William Lane's name. Now, you remember I was talking about Francis Barnard earlier, who had a dispute with William Lane. For some reason, his name is not there Francis Bernard's name is not there. William Lane was dead by this time, 1674, so he wasn't the vicar of Atherton Gifford then. He died in 54, I think.
So this vicar has been removed from
He's
the
not been put on the
historical
list.
record.
Yeah, he's not been put on this list of rectors for
Why
some
could
reason.
that be, do you think?
I haven't got a clue. I'd love to know. So if anybody knows, please let me know. Yeah. Let me know, yeah. It could be because when the Royalists, the Restoration, this was a new list. This is not the nothing like the original list. No. But at the Restoration, Charles II did get rid of a lot of those, a lot of information and those people who had his father executed. I know Francis Barnard didn't, but he took over. He was a Puritan minister, so maybe that's why he removed him. So
interesting story.
interesting, isn't
Perhaps
it? Yeah.
somebody will have an answer.
Yeah, hopefully. I bet someone has. Somebody local will have an answer. Yes. He was a great character, though, William Lane. One of the great characters of the Civil War that have been lost to history, really. But if you look for it, you'll find it. Thank you, Steve.